Good speeches on controversial issues are some of the best examples of argument. Unlike the brief sound bites that we hear on the evening news or in response to a microphone thrust in a politician's face as he or she leaves the building, a carefully prepared speech is the closest we come in the 21st century to the rhetoric that Aristotle taught. A blend of ethos, logos and pathos. Ethos is about establishing your authority to speak on the subject. Logos is your logical argument for your point. And pathos is your attempt to sway an audience emotionally. Listening to a speech or reading one requires focus on the ideas to the exclusion of physical appearance. It requires listening for claim and support. Is there an implicit or explicit warrant at work in any of the claims? Are there any fallacies that you learned about earlier at work in the speech? Does the claim make logical sense? Listen and note where the speech is pure rhetoric, the art of persuasive speaking, where a claim can be made without any supports, yet sounds convincing because of the use of language and effective delivery. Watch this video a few times before doing a pre-read, followed by a critical analysis of all the elements at work. Pick out at least one claim and one support for that claim. See, can you spot one fallacy and one example of rhetoric?
The Provisional Government of the Irish Republic, to the people of Ireland. Irish men and Irish women, in the name of God and of the dead generations from which she receives her old tradition of nationhood, Ireland, through us, summons her children to her flag and strikes for her freedom. Having organised and trained her manhood through her secret revolutionary organisation, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and through her open military organisations, the Irish Volunteers and the Irish Citizen Army. Having patiently perfected her discipline, having resolutely waited for the right moment to reveal itself, she now seizes that moment, and, supported by her exiled children in America and by gallant allies in Europe, but relying in the first on her own strength, she strikes in full confidence of victory. We declare the right of the people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland and to the unfettered control of Irish destinies to be sovereign and indefeasible. The long usurpation of that right by a foreign people and government has not extinguished the right, nor can it ever be extinguished, except by the destruction of the Irish people. In every generation, the Irish people have asserted their right to national freedom and sovereignty. 6 times during the past 300 years, they have asserted it in arms. Standing on that fundamental right and of the world, we hereby proclaim the Irish Republic as a sovereign, independent state, and we pledge our lives and the lives of our comrades in arms.
Watch this video a few times and then note claims and supports. Is there an implicit or explicit warrant at work in any of the claims? Are there any fallacies at work in the speech? Does the claim or claims make logical sense? Listen and note where the speech is pure rhetoric. Watch this video a few times before doing a pre-read, followed by a critical analysis of all the elements or rhetorical strategies at work.
President Abraham Lincoln was also thinking of bold action 150 years ago when he said, "The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present, as our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew. We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we shall save our country. He was speaking before the U.S. Congress to confront the defining issue of his time, slavery. Everyone knew it had to end, but no one had the political will to stop it. Remarkably, his words ring as true today when applied to the defining crisis of our time, climate change. As a UN messenger of peace, I have traveled all over the world for the last 2 years documenting how this crisis is changing the natural balance of our planet. I've seen cities like Beijing choked by industrial pollution, ancient boreal forests in Canada that have been clear-cut, and rainforests in Indonesia that have been incinerated. In India, I met farmers whose crops have been literally washed away by historic flooding. In America, I've witnessed unprecedented droughts in California and sea level rise flooding the streets of Miami. In Greenland and in the Arctic, I was astonished to see that ancient glaciers are rapidly disappearing, well ahead of scientific predictions. All that I have seen and learned on my journey has absolutely terrified me. There is no doubt in the world scientific community that this is a direct result of human activity and that the effects of climate change will become astronomically worse in the future. You know that climate change is happening faster than even the most pessimistic of scientists warned us decades ago. It has become a runaway freight train, bringing with it an impending disaster for all living things. Now think about the shame that each of us will carry when our children and grandchildren look back and realize that we had the means of stopping this devastation, but simply lacked the political will to do so. Our plan.
Watch this video a few times and then note claims and supports. Is there an implicit or explicit warrant at work in any of the claims? Are there any fallacies at work in the speech? Does the claim or claims make logical sense? Listen and note where the speech is pure rhetoric. Watch this video a few times before doing a pre-read, followed by a critical analysis of all the elements or rhetorical strategies at work.
If one asks about, is the temperature increasing or decreasing? It's always doing one or the other. I have no concern about that. By asking people to worry about whether it's going up or down, you're immediately establishing dishonesty. The earth is always changing. Climate change is nothing you have to prove. It always is happening. It always has happened. So to make that into something alarming seems to me a little bit weird. Sea level is a hard thing to measure, actually. At any given place, traditionally, sea level was measured by what are called tide gauges. A stick in the water, basically. And two things change what a tide gauge shows. The land moving up and down, and the sea moving up and down. In most places, it's the land that is the biggest effect. So you don't have a good measure of sea level rise. On the other hand, for the last 30 years or so, we've had satellite measurements that are actually measuring sea level. It's very hard to relate these two measurements to each other. They were measuring different things. The general feeling is there is no evidence that it's different now than it has been for the last few thousand years. It's been slowly rising ever since the initial rapid rise after the deglaciation 12,000 years ago. The claim that we've suddenly seen a big change in that, given we've changed the instrumentation and given the error bars cover the difference, is not entirely fair.
Return to your analysis of both speeches and note what you think would be needed by each party to strengthen their arguments. How many unsupported claims have you counted in video 1? How many unsupported claims have you counted in video 2? Has the use of video clips and music in video 1 strengthened the argument or just heightened the fear level? What should you ask yourself about both video clips?